society, or it can be deleterious to society as well. But anyway, welcome to the farm here. I'll introduce myself. I'm Refi Gaudiel. Uh, I basically had my education from nursery school until my graduation in Bachelor's of Science in Agriculture in Silliman University. So that started from, boy, that would be about when I was in nursery school. I was still at the back of the church there where the nursery school was. It's a long time, just right after maybe World War II kind of thing. So that's a long, long time. After Silliman, I graduated agriculture in Silliman. I went to Los Baños, UP Los Baños, and there it was about 1963, no, 61, I guess. And then I stayed here in this farm for 1 year, one time after I graduated from agriculture in Silliman. Silliman was then, agriculture was still developing in Silliman to some degree. But Los Baños was already well known as one of the best agricultural school in the Philippines. So after that, in Los Baños, I was I was I was a research instructor there one time. But at the same time, I was taking my Master's of Science degree in Los Baños. And that was a time that there were lots of graduate students coming from Cornell University in the U.S. And Los Baños and Cornell University had a program, an exchange program. So at the time, most of the people there, even the faculty members, was thinking about going abroad mainly because of the exposure to this, what you call this, to these graduate students and the faculty. Lots of faculty from Cornell was coming in, and Erie was also there. The International Research Institute was coming at the same time. So lots of faculty were sort of being you're being prodded to say that, boy, I should also like to go to the States, for example. And they were very good professors, not only from the U.S., from Japan, and from India and other things that comprise the Los Baños and the Erie faculty members out there as well. So I got my master's there in 1966. I went to Canada. I actually applied in the U.S. at the different universities, but one of my friends out here in Dumaguete, si Dr. Garcia, he graduated from St. Paul's. He was in the University of Guelph in Canada, and at that time, University of Guelph was very young. Now it was basically the university basically came into being in 1964, but the colleges were very old, but they just went together. And so I arrived in 1966, and he was telling me that it was very good because the faculty members were very close to each other, and you can go from one kind of college to another. It was very easy. So I was there in 1966, and then until having a well, you can get out there. You can be a teaching assistant or research assistant, and then you can have some stipend. It was okay. It wasn't very much, but it was okay to be able to go there, kind of thing. So I was in Guelph and got out of Guelph 1971, 72. I was in the University of Alberta doing some postdoctoral fellow. After you finish your PhD, sometimes you want to go to a laboratory or a clinic or a faculty member that specializes on the area that you are interested in. So I went to University of Alberta, get a postdoc, and there I was basically working on crop physiology and specifically on plant nutrition. And at the same time, we were working on different hormones and that kind of thing, plant hormones and everything, and how it behaves in the plant and that kind of thing. And then at that time, there were some openings uh, in the province of Alberta. There's a research center out there, the Alberta Horticulture Research Center. So I was employed there. It was 1972 until I retired in 1998. That was basically how long I stayed in that place there. So I was in the research center there as a research scientist. And my mandate in the province of Alberta was not to make scientific papers. Scientific papers were very good, especially if you like to have progress in your status going up. The papers will do very good. But I found that the papers sometimes, scientific papers, just stays on the shelf and doesn't do anything very much. But when I went to the province of Alberta, my mandate was basically to diversify the agriculture industry of Alberta. Because Alberta's agriculture before were basically the traditional crops, wheat, oats, barley, canola, that kind of thing. So out there we were said, just go on and go whatever you like to do, play around with whatever crops you like to do, and then diversify as much as possible what you can diversify in the province of Alberta. And Alberta is a continental climate kind of thing. And the climate there is such that I guess you can start your growing season can start about, I would say, late April to first week of May. That's the first time that you can basically go and plant kind of thing. And then it will basically end around the mid-September. So I would say the spring frost will come in. You cannot plant before that, mainly because the frost can come in. The temperature will be below 0 degrees centigrade kind of thing. So it's almost useless to plant kind of thing there. And then then at the end of September, the fall frost comes in. Again, you get 0 degrees. So you get a very short period of time. So people out there they're very cognizant of the fact that when it's time to plant, you better plant. Because if you don't plant during May, if you go up to June, your crop will not mature basically by September. So when people say that you got only a window of maybe 2-3 weeks to plant for certain crops, depending upon the kind of crop. That's the kind of agriculture out there. You're being pushed really by the climate. There's nothing at all out here. Oh, you can dilly dally, no big deal. I would say you can plant this week. We can do all this next week. The temperature is just almost the same all throughout the year, except maybe for the rainy season and the dry season. But when you think about it, night temperature comes in maybe at maybe 20 degrees centigrade. If you're in Baguio, maybe it can go down to 10 degrees centigrade, but that's even warm. 10 degrees centigrade is relatively warm, you know. And then day temperature there can go up to 35 degrees centigrade sometimes. And then the photo period, I guess you know what photo period is, the length of the day and the length of the night. The photo period there is pretty pretty variable in the year. During the shortest day of the year, that is on June 21, I would suspect that at the shortest night, I think you only have a dark period of maybe only about 6 hours, maybe. June 21, your day period starts at about 5 o'clock in the morning. It's already bright. And then it will end up about 10 o'clock in the evening. It's still bright. So you get sometimes about 18 hours of thing. Out here in the farm here, there's nothing at all that you can think about it. Mainly because I think you know exactly how the earth turns, and then when it turns, and then during during the winter time, it basically goes this way and then it goes this way as it turns around the sun. So that's the reason why you get a very long. But during December 19, that's the shortest day. That's the time that essentially you'll only you only have a reverse kind of thing. The nights are very long and the days are very short. And if you were in Alaska, for example, during winter time,
Yung
it will always be
3
night
hours.
time or it will always be daytime, depending upon the time that you're going. because it's basically tilting out there, so it's being hit. So anyway, in terms of the farm year, we're trying to do any crops that can is the adaptable year. And for me, having been out here for a long, long time, I still have to learn sometimes some of the details out here in terms of farming to some degree. But we've been here for a long time, but at the same time, you miss lots of the details in terms of farming. And regards to the social enterprise part of it, this farm was built. My father bought this maybe Cocos Lolo bought this maybe in the 1930s, 1938, something like that. And it's been catering to a large degree to lots of, at the time, you don't have there was no more roads here, no roads coming from Bayawan this way or even this way here. We used to pass this way before. You cannot pass that way because it was all full of, it was forestal and everything. The only way that we were able to come here when we were still elementary grades or even high school was through the river. Because basically, from Bayawan, it took you close to maybe 3 hours to be able to reach here through the Baroto or something. So it was not an easy kind of thing. When I was coming out here, I used to have my bike and pass through Canalom and then Nangka and then come here and then at the other side of the river, I would be shouting to people to pick me up for a Baroto from there to coming over here. That is how this farm has to be developed. At the same time, this was developed because of the tenancy system. There were lots of tenants out here. That's why here we respect the tenants. To some degree, that's a part of the social enterprise part of it. This farm was built on that basis. So there's still lots of some old people here, not very much anymore. But those people we respect very much because they were part of the developing system. Out here right now, we're still Philippines is still part of the tenancy system in terms of the spirit of the tenancy system is very good. I like it. But at the same time, sometimes the implementation and how it's being done sometimes impacts a little bit on the productivity of the land. Mainly because I think, as most of you know, there's a certain size of the land or the farm that if you like it to be more productive and more efficient in production, it has to have a certain size. The smaller it is, the harder it is to be able to make it economically feasible. This farm is big enough, and we still got tenants out here that develops it, and we tend to take care of it as much as possible. There are some people here that tend to say that the tenancy system is not very good and that kind of thing. But at the same time, we try to develop and help as much people live out here. That's basically what the farm is all about. In terms of social enterprise, that's part of it. As I told you in the outset, social enterprise is almost like any activity that impacts society. And basically, that's it. Uh, we have certain projects here that does impact society. For example, we're growing corn here. We got the coconuts. Uh, we got I guess some rice fields out here. Uh, the the thing that we wanted to develop here was the production of essential oils. Uh, I guess you know what essential oils are. They're basically used for flavor or for fragrance. And so we can produce out here things like lemongrass oil. We can produce here things like citronella. I guess if you go to YouTube, you see lots of those things. There's evidence in the YouTube, some indications that they can make 24 million pesos a year. No, 24 pesos a year per hectare basis for citronella. But those are assumptions. Those are really not reality, I guess, when I look at it. Because we've been growing citronella here. We can grow lemongrass out here. We can grow patchouli out here. We can grow vetiver out here. We can grow ilang-ilang out here. And we planted lots of ilang-ilang out here. only
Work
we haven't
for
taken good care of it. Right now, lots of people in Luzon are planting ilang-ilang
yes, for
because the
fragrance.
Philippines was in the 1900s the biggest source of ilang-ilang. And for the girls, I guess, if you're using Chanel 5, ilang-ilang is one of the base there that is being used for the Chanel 5 fragrance kind of thing. And it's expensive one. They
Yes,
said that nowadays, ilang-ilang essential oils cost maybe a liter of it. 1 liter of ilang-ilang oil will be in the range of, some people are saying 18,000 pesos a liter. Some people are even saying up to 45,000 pesos a liter, depending upon who you talk to or what you get. But it depends because ilang-ilang has a different grades. When you distill it, it's got different grades. So we get a small distillation place out there. This is a pilot one, in and we can distill some of those essential oils out here. Now in Canada, I've been involved with the production on under the growing of essential oils. Out there, we've been doing mostly the mints, the peppermint. If you got peppermint candies or peppermint chewing gum, that kind of thing, or if you've taken some medicine, for example, there's lots of peppermint and spearmint and dill. If you've eaten some dill pickles, for example, then most probably, you know, they've used some dill essential oils.